East Hampton Town Board, you are live.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the November 17th regular meeting of the East Hampton Town Board. Carol, would you please read the roll call?
Present.
Councilmember Lee.
Present.
Councilmember Aldridge.
Here.
Councilmember Rogers.
Present.
Supervisor Van.
Present. Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning. This morning we have 7 public hearings, which will be followed by a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. We ask that you please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Carol, if you would please read the, do we have Hugh?
I'm sorry?
Matt, do we have Hugh King with us today?
No.
I don't see Hugh in the waiting room.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll proceed then with the public hearings. Carol, if you read the first, the COVID disclosure and the first public hearing notice.
Can I make a motion to combine the first two public hearings, please?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carry.
These public hearings will be held live and in person by the town board and will be available electronically by video and teleconferencing and will be televised on local TV channel 22 and available for live stream on the LCV website. The public shall be permitted to appear in person, but may also provide comments on the matter being heard by calling 351-888-6331. Any person or party wishing to be heard with respect to the foregoing may do so in person or by agent, by attorney or by teleconference to the live meeting, or by written comment addressed to the East Hampton Town Clerk, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton. Comments may also be submitted to the town clerk by email to cbrennan@ehamptonny.gov. All comments must be received by the town clerk by the date and time of the public hearing. Please check the meeting agenda posted on the town's website for any changes or for updated information. Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing on November 17th at 11 a.m. in the town board meeting room, Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard on a proposed local law providing for the adoption of a revised community preservation project plan pursuant to Section 64E of the New York Town Law, which provides for the preservation of open space, historic places, and recreational areas within the town of East Hampton, including the incorporated villages therein, to include approximately 2 acres of land located at 106 Red Dirt Road in Springs, reputedly owned by Carolyn Albrecht, and identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 300-103-8-3.4. Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the town board meeting room, East Hampton Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law and Section 64E8 of the Town Law of the State of New York on November 17th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard, to consider the following: the town's acquisition for the preservation of open space with community preservation funds of a property located at 106 Red Dirt Road in Springs, reputedly owned by Carolyn Halbrecht, and consisting of approximately 2 acres of vacant land at a cost to the town of East Hampton not to exceed $1,500,000 plus reasonable survey, title, prorated tax, and recording charges. Said property being described on the Suffolk County tax map as 300-103-8-3.4, an amendment to the 2022 CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include said property.
Thank you, Carol. I believe we have Scott Wilson in the waiting room, who will give a brief overview of.
He's being put in right now.
Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. I'm just putting up the aerial. Okay. So this is a 2-acre wooded lot off of Red Dirt Road. It's outlined in blue on this aerial. As you can see on the aerial, the property is adjacent to protected lands owned by the town. And you may note if you look closely, there are two 20-foot axis flag lot strips that actually separate this lot from open space. But those lots actually take access from Sunburst up here. And so the preservation would actually protect what is an undisturbed woodland corridor. Forested areas that are yet undeveloped provide valuable habitat for wildlife and protected plant species, which is why the board recently approved the acquisition of the Rady lots just to the right on this aerial over here. Please note the orange line that traverses the northern border of this property is an active trail that both TPS and the Nature Preserve Committee have recommended protecting because development will compromise both the trail and the rural atmosphere, which still persists in this community. This parcel is in the Water Recharge Overlay District, a special groundwater protection area, and the Pine Barrens region. The property meets the criteria set forth in Town Law 64E. I would ask the board pass a resolution to add this parcel to the project plan, as well as one to acquire.
Thank you, Scott. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this matter? Yes, David.
Good morning, Town Board, Town Supervisor, and Town Council members. I'm a resident of the Springs. I'm very familiar with this area. In fact, I walked the...
Your name, please, for the record. Not everybody in town.
Oh, my goodness, look at that. Money well spent. I'm very familiar with many of the trails.
David, if you could just state your name for the record.
Did I not do that?
No.
David Buddha,
Thank you.
a resident of the Springs. Here we go again. I am very familiar with this area. In fact, I walked the subject trail, which I think is referred to as the George Wilson Trail, just yesterday. I am generally supportive of CPF acquisitions of vacant land, particularly in this area of the Springs that supports trails and environmental concerns. However, this is both an unnecessary addition to the project plan and an expensive and overpriced acquisition that the board should reject. Let me go through this a little bit in detail, bearing in mind this is a double hearing. First of all, when these matters are put up for a public hearing, the public is given no more than typically 14 days from the first opportunity to even know that it's being considered to the time of a public hearing, which requires any interested member of the public to work really diligently to jump on top of it and to find out what's pertinent facts and documents might exist. So first thing I do is I send a FOIL request to Mr. Scott Wilson, because invariably in all purchases that in the past, the town CPF advisory board relies upon the expertise of your planning department to prepare a detailed, in-depth assessment and an evaluation with a grading. That was not done in this instance. So says Mr. Wilson. He wrote to me back in response to my FOIL request, "We do not have a specific assessment form for 106 Red Dirt. We relied on our internal assessment, the planning discussion and description in the advisory board meeting, and the review by the town board. However, whereas a planning department objective professional assessment is a document that can be reviewed by the public, none of those things that Scott Wilson refers to, the internal assessment, the discussion in executive closed session of the advisory board, your own closed session meeting, none of your considerations, none of the facts, none of the information that was considered by you can be known by the public in advance of this proposed expenditure of $1.5 million, which used to be considered a lot of money. I still consider it to be a fair amount of change. So we don't have a detailed assessment. What do we have? We have the fact that the CPF program has been in existence for about 22 years now, maybe 24 years. And this was never added to the project plan. There was a 4-lot minor subdivision in 1985, and I reviewed the records. That was the lot, the through lot from Red Dirt Road to Red Neck Path that created the 4 lots. It was sometime later that sand burst Sunburst Lane was created, which provided additional access to some of those 4 lots, because the lots that were created, 2 of those lots do take their access from Sunburst. And according to an analysis by your former planning director, this lot, 106, could be developed via access from Sunburst Lane as well as Red Dirt Drive. Mr. Wilson did acknowledge that there is a 40-foot separation between this property and any town-owned open space protected properties. This lot is surrounded by 3 developed houses that is part of a subdivision. This subdivision was created with great care to fully protect and preserve the trail, which Mr. Wilson and your resolution proposing to add this to the project plan says needs to be done. It does not need to be done. The property at 22 Sunburst Lane contains a 25-foot wide scenic easement for the purposes of a trail preservation. That's how it was formed. That's how it was recorded. That's how it was documented, to protect the trail that comes from the south, from Red Dirt Road, cuts across between these 2 lots. Why is the shape of this lot so odd? Because the planning board was very much concerned to put the trail on the edge of the 2 properties and to protect it with a scenic easement. That was done. The trail is intact. This property does not in any way benefit the trail. It's already protected.
Thank you,
Next.
David.
What do you thank me for?
Thank you for your comments.
I'm not done.
Well, your 3 minutes is up.
Sir, it's a double hearing. It's a public hearing. This matter is of great importance. $1.5 million, you're speaking to something that was worth discussing. And frankly, there is no law that enables
The
you.
policy of how the meeting is run, David, you're well
You
aware of it.
cannot possibly cut me off at this point. That would be so unfair, so unreasonable, and so unjust. So let me continue with the hope that someone on the board might be interested to hear my comments with respect to the price.
Please continue, but
Thank you.
try to make your comments brief and really concise and to the point, if you can.
I can.
Okay, great.
This is another example of a realtor bringing a property to the CPF advisory board, overpricing it, and then immediately bringing it to the CPF board for consideration. This property was purchased less than 10 years ago for $400,000. Vacant properties, vacant developable lots have not increased that much in that period of time in this area of the Springs. The only one who's paying that kind of money, $1.5 million, for a 2 to 3 acre developable lot in the Springs is the CPF, based on appraisals that frankly are overly generous. And in the case of your recent purchase of, I think it's 48 and 50 Red Dirt Road, was based on a very horrendous mistake of including a property as being vacant, when in fact it has a substantial property. So what I'm saying is, although I cannot get a hold of the appraisal for this property, which, by the way, Mr. Shodecki, I would hope that you would direct Mr. Wilson to release the appraisals once you have entered into a conditional contract, because at that point in time, there is no legal basis to protect the appraisal. So let's assume that this property appraised at or about the 1.5 million. Based on the recent appraisal that was done for the other parcels that were referred to, 48 and 50 Red Dirt Road, which you purchased for $1.5 million on average for the 2, that appraisal was skewed by the fact that the highest value of comparable property that it considered was a property at 852 Springs Fireplace Road, which sold for about $1.7 million. What the appraiser neglected to do was to take into consideration that there was this very substantial, historic, 4-bedroom, 3-bath, 3,000 square foot property that exists on that property that supported that $1.7 million purchase price. There is no other privately purchased non-waterfront property, non-CPF purchase that supports a value of $1.5 million for this lot, which is, by the way, also encumbered by the fact that it has steep slopes in the middle. It is not a property that's worth $1.5 million of the CPF money. And the only real reason that's been advanced and for taking the shortcuts that apparently occurred in this instance was to protect the trail. But the trail's protected. It's not even on this lot. There is a 25-foot easement that protects the trail completely. So there's no good reason to do so. And unless you take the position that every single vacant property in the town must be bought by the CPF so that we have no further development and so that we can protect all the birds and all of the nature and fauna, it makes no sense for the town to spend this money for this property at this time.
Thank you, David.
You're very welcome.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board? Yes, sir.
Good morning. My name's Erwin Levy. I'm a 33-year resident of Springs. I'm a member of the Springs CAC. Hi, Kate.
Hi.
I'm a member of the Nature Preserve Committee. Hi, David. And I'm also president of the East Hampton Trails Preservation Society. I'd like to express my full support for the acquisition of the Holbrook property at 106 Red Dirt Road. This property has an important trail connector within it between Jacobs Farm and the Stony Hill Preserves, along with the George Sid Miller Trail, Junior Trail from Springs to Amagansett. Essentially, acquiring this property serves to close the, no pun intended here, loop on an important section of our trail system. This property was also very near and dear to past NPC chair and advocate for all things Springs, Zachary Cohn. So thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the board on this matter?
Motion to close?
Do we have any
Oh,
callers
sorry.
on the line, Matt, for
No
this public
caller.
hearing?
I do not know if they're calling in for this hearing. I will unmute caller 9396. Caller 9396, is this the topic you would like to talk about? Caller 9396. I muted caller 9396. Doesn't seem like they were paying attention.
Do we have any other callers on the line, Matt?
No, that's it.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass carried. Carol, if you read the third public hearing notice for today, please.
Take notice that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing pursuant to section 232 urban renewal of the town code of the town of East Hampton, section 232-170, modification of urban renewal plans in the town hall meeting room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on November 17th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard to consider the following modification of urban renewal map EH14. Urban renewal parcels URP number 32 and EH 14, tax map number 300, 147, 727.1, map number 528, map of Montauk Manor. The address is 137 Springs Fireplace Road, and the requested modification, amend UR map EH 14 to mark UR parcel number 32 as outside UR map study as property zone commercial industrial.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone wish to address the board on this matter? David, again, I'll ask that you please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
I will certainly try, but again, let me reiterate, as a public hearing, I really don't think that the board should be putting a strict limit before someone even speaks. Not that you have a long list of people or a full room of people here looking to attend.
This venue is for us to hear what the points are that you want to make, not to hear, a long diatribe. So again, for the sake of everybody's interest, everybody's time, if you could please just keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
All right.
Thanks.
Just
Pass those
pass
down.
these three documents down. Sure.
So I only have two of these.
Good morning again, David. At first blush, this urban renewal map modification appears to be a slam dunk. You have a commercial property that has been rezoned in the past. It previously had a residence, and therefore the request is to simply change the designation to take it outside of the urban renewal map process and program and label it to acknowledge the existing changed zoning. My reason for standing up is to ask you to take a broader look and not simply put a rubber stamp on this. There is a problem in this immediate area as evidenced by the 3 documents I've handed to you, a aerial map, the existing zoning, and the tax map, current tax map of the area with the subject lot highlighted. It's the town board's job to be the guardian of and to keep current the urban renewal map plan study. If you look at the zoning map, you'll see that there are 2 other adjacent parcels that are also in the commercial industrial zone and that should be given similar treatment as this property. But more importantly, one of the purposes of the urban renewal map study plan was to ensure proper roadway development. Washington Avenue, which is behind this property, is a rutted, undeveloped, dirty, busy industrial road. And the town needs to find a way to have it properly improved with pavement and drainage. This urban renewal map modification came about because it's part of a site plan process that the planning board is undergoing to join this property to the adjacent property, which connects through to Washington Avenue. So this parcel will be joined with an adjacent parcel and will be utilizing clearly Washington Avenue. One aspect of the urban renewal map study plan was to ensure that there would be contributions made by property owners of vacant properties so as to improve roadways that were never improved because in this old file map area, obviously it was created before there was a planning board. And it has changed much since the time that it was envisioned as a residential area. You have one aspect of the urban renewal map process, which is the specification of which roads need to be improved to a full 50-foot right-of-way. That should not be obscured by the fact that this is now has had its zoning changed. Likewise, there are other aspects of the urban renewal map study program, such as the specification of the requirement for scenic easements along roadways. There are 2 other commercial industrial properties along Springs Fireplace Road to the north in front of the town's recycling center, which are being considered for site plan. One is being considered a site plan. And everyone involved there understands that the scenic easement requirement must be applied, even though it's a commercial industrially zoned property and is proposed to be developed for commercial industrial purposes. So what I'm asking you to do is, even if you approve this, and perhaps you should, the town has to bite the bullet and find a way with these property owners in this region to properly improve a roadway that was necessary and will be used by this property when the subdivision site plan process is completed. I think that property once upon a time was offices, there was a medical building, but now it's a car repair place. And this property, which once had a house for many years, was used as a taxi company parking lot, and now is being used by the company that bought the property that's the adjacent user. So you should not turn a blind eye to the fact that this modification is only part of the process. You need to also deal with the 2 other adjacent parcels that are still in the urban renewal process, have parcel numbers, and you have to deal with the road situation. If you don't find a way to deal with it, the current situation, which is unacceptable, will just stay in existence ad infinitum.
Thank you, David. Anyone else wish to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any callers on the line who wish to discuss this matter?
Just that same caller 9396. Would you like me to unmute them? Peter, would you like me to unmute them?
Yeah, can you find out if they want to speak to this hearing, this matter?
Yep. Caller
The amendment of the UR map?
caller 9396, you are unmuted. Are you there? Caller 9396, are you there? Paying attention? All right, caller 9396. I'm gonna unmute you. We'll give it a try again later on. All right, Peter. No one else.
Are there any other callers on the line, Matt?
Sorry, no. There's no other callers. Sorry.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. That brings us up to our fourth public hearing notice. Carol, if you'd read the notice, please.
Notice hereby given that the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing at Town Hall, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, November 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, to consider comments of all persons regarding a local law adopting Chapter 173 entitled Monitoring of Groundwater Impacts for Composting, Mine Reclamation, and Mulch Production into the Town Code, and abstract of which follows. Excuse me. A local law enacting regulations requiring groundwater mining for properties engaged in composting operations, mining reclamation, and mulch production, and setting forth the requirements for the development of work plans for the monitoring of groundwater impacts and installation of monitoring wells based upon 6 CRR NY 363-4.42, as well as periodic reporting and testing for samples taken from such wells for certain analysis as set forth in the schedule adopted by the town board and modified from time to time by resolution of the town board as set forth in the approved work plan.
Thank you, Carol. I do have two people signed up ahead of time to speak. Again, we ask you to try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Paul Charloff. Morning, Paul.
Good morning, Supervisor Van Scoyac and town board members. I am Paul Charlo from the Charlo Law Firm in Syracuse. I'm here on behalf of multiple entities that have operations in the town of East Hampton. Wayne Scott Properties, Bistrian Gravel Corp., Sand Highway, and Bistrian Materials. I'm an environmental and land use counsel to these operating entities. And since I've been before you on multiple occasions before, for the sake of brevity, I'll refer to you to my previous statements as it relates to my experience representing mining companies and Part 360 operations all over the state of New York. Also, as I've stated before, my clients are not opposed to collecting and analyzing the science and going above and beyond when it comes to implementing environmental controls at their sites. Our opposition is not about that. It's about making sure that what you're asking for in your law is not redundant or irrational. Since this is the third version of your law, I tried to figure out how this law gets the town any closer to accomplishing their objectives, and I'm having trouble. Let's take a look at the reasoning that you've stated behind your purpose for your proposed legislation. You state that this new law is based upon comments from the public in response to prior versions of the proposed local law. Well, we requested during the comment period for the previous versions the town meet with industry to learn about the controls that are and can be implemented at these sites, including the town's own operations and their Part 360 operations, to discuss the analyte list that has a rational basis. Because the controls that you implement at these sites are the most important actions that we can take to fulfill what I think is your most important stated purpose in your law, the protection of the aquifer. But that hasn't happened. There's been no dialogue with industry and their experts. Instead, you expanded your analyte list to include everything under the sun, including emerging contaminants. And your consultant stood before you and claimed that DEC was requiring them, and that's why it was added. Well, it's simply not true. They don't require sampling for emerging contaminants at any of the mine sites on Long Island because it just simply doesn't make sense. And there's an ongoing discussion regarding the parameters of the state-led groundwater study as to whether they will be included in that. Your second stated reason is that the data is not available to the local community in a timely manner. Well, this law is not needed for you to get your data in a timely manner. All you'd have to do is request that from DEC. I'm sure that if you put together a FOIL request to DEC that was on a continual basis, they'd provide that data to you as they get it. I also know that my clients that are required to monitor would gladly provide that data to you if it's truly a timeliness issue. Another stated purpose in your law is that this law will allow the town the ability to identify issues of concern and allow prompt action. Well, what's the prompt action? And more importantly, what are the thresholds for when action will be required? Your analyte list has been expanded to include analytes with absolutely no relation to these facilities whatsoever. So what are you going to do if you find these type of analytes at these operations? With regard to the analytes that you're requiring, by requiring these analytes, you're outside of your legislative authority. As I've commented on the previous versions of your law, your authority is limited simply to the ability to require groundwater monitoring at mine sites. Your law is attempting to expand that limited authority by requiring analytes that have absolutely no relation to mining activities. The enabling legislation that grants you this authority does not grant additional local authority to impose an obligations for mine sites to become monitoring stations for the entire town for potential contamination completely unrelated to mining. For example, emerging contaminants. Emerging contaminants have been studied ad nauseum and determined to come from sources such as municipal fire departments, paper mills, and aviation operations, to name a few, not mining activities. Another example in your analyte list is the radionucleotides. Radionucleotides occur naturally or as a result of activities related to nuclear weapons testing and radioactive waste. Again, not mining activities. By including these analytes without any thresholds or guidance for action items, should sampling results show positive, your law is just going to cause public hysteria. Meanwhile, DEC is conducting a rational, thoughtful study. My suggestion is that instead of muddying the waters with this law, get involved with a straight groundwater study as the governor envisioned. And then let's let the results of that study guide the need for this type of law in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Chris Holmes.
Morning, Supervisor, Board. Thank you for having me. My name is Chris Armskog, professional geologist with PW Grosser Consulting. I specialize in groundwater investigations, remediations throughout Long Island. I graduated SUNY Stony Brook with a degree in geology, and I've been doing hydrologic investigations and studies on Long Island since 1997 when I got out of school. I do also represent several of the same clients that Mr. Charlo mentioned. And again, I'd like to talk about some of the concerns I have about the legislation. Specifically, I think it's very important for something like this that the town seeks input from some of the specialists, DEC and Suffolk County Department of Health. I think having some of their input would probably go a long way in making the legislation, strong and not redundant to what's being done out there, and really focus what needs to be studied. Suffolk County Department of Health recently just did a large-scale study of the Springs Fireplace Corridor area, and I think they sampled over 750 homes. Their findings were they had a few homes that their wells were too close to cesspools. They saw no impact from mining activities or mulching activities that were negatively impacting groundwater in this area. So that's factual data right there. In addition, DEC has been studying and requesting groundwater data on certain mines throughout Long Island for quite a while. There's 2 decades of data out there, samples, analytical results that's available to be looked at. If you're a consultant, I could help your consultant find some of this, boil it from DEC. They could look at it, see what it means, and come up with a meaningful list of analytes. One of the big concerns I have is the analyte list that you have in here. A lot of those analytes have no standards with the state, which means when you go and sample for something and you find it, it's very hard to tell the public what that means. It's there. Some of these are naturally occurring compounds that when you find, without being able to explain to the public what the safe standard is, it puts everyone in a very tricky spot. So it's very important that when we ask for, when we do certain analytes and sample for them, we know what the results are going to mean as far as, is it healthy or is it not healthy? Is there a standard that the government's done testing on that they could determine what that means? Without it, it really causes a lot of confusion in the public. So the analyte list is a big issue I have. It does seem as if the analyte list was taken from the 2016 Suffolk County Department of Health study, where they did study some vegetative organic waste recycling facilities throughout the island. That study when it was done, and I recommend people take a look at it, it basically found, after studying 16 different facilities, there was an increased potential to see manganese in the water nearby the vegetated facilities. And the exact wording was, there was atypical elevated concentrations of some radiological parameters. It did not say this was a major issue. It did not recommend hardcore sampling or controls or anything else like that in these facilities. Based on that study, that's what I believe your list of compounds came from. It doesn't make a link that these are related. So that was a very robust study. And again, it found manganese, and it did find some radiological parameters that were atypical. That is exactly how it's worded. So going from there to requiring these facilities to sample for all this range of parameters seems very extreme. Let's see. Again, we're also having an issue finding a certified laboratory in the United States who can run all of these parameters. It's something that we've been looking for. We work with many labs throughout the country, recognized national leaders in analytical work. And we just can't find someone who will certify this whole list of parameters. So that represents another problem for the industry. If they were to do this and give you the data could be called not useful, not valid, and basically because we can't even find an expert lab to do this full list of analytes. So that's something to consider as well. Also, something like this could cause hysteria. It could cause some of these facilities to shut down. I think the board, in addition to thinking about groundwater, you want to think about the overall environmental impact. Recently, New York State passed the CLCPA. That's the Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act. That act is basically requiring state permits and state agencies to look at new permits coming through, seeing how that is going to affect climate throughout the state. One of the things that if some of these facilities shut down, what you would see is you'd see thousands more trucks on the road coming and going because these facilities out here are a local source of aggregate. They supply aggregate for construction projects, for infrastructure projects, for people's, concrete walkways, for roadways, for basements. And the mulching facilities, they take in leaves and branches, they break them up, they then sell them as mulch for people to put on their yards. It's the same activities that are going on farms and in people's residential homes. Yes, it's on a larger scale. Our clients, they do take some of the best management practices and they're actually applauded by DEC for some of the things they do at their facilities as far as engineering controls. Some of these engineering controls are meant to, if there was an issue, to minimize any impact to groundwater. Those include putting an impervious layer down below the mulch. So when you do get rainwater coming through the mulch pile, it doesn't get into the groundwater, and some holding lagoons. I'd again advise you to talk to DEC and see what they say about some of the operations out here. DEC uses them as a role model for other people on the island because they go above and beyond what is even required to do, put things in place to protect the environment. So again, think about the CLCPA, which, an action like this could lead to some of those businesses closing and would lead to additional trucks, additional air emissions, additional costs for doing infrastructure work and for activities, and basically would fly in the face of what the CLCPA is trying to do: keep things local, reduce carbon outputs. One of the other things I want to get across, because I see this when talking to a lot of community groups and about sand mining, there is this idea that sand mines are digging a pit. Once the pit is dug, filling it up with garbage or debris, or that is not the truth. When you do something with the DEC, there's a really, really in-depth plan that describes what can go back in. The only thing they really put back in is some topsoil to get some vegetation growing on the slopes. There's a lot of confusion between permitted mine sites and illegal sand pits that someone will go and dig, take the sand, and then dump. Those are not sites that are regulated by DEC. Those are an issue, and towns and the state should be looking at those things harder because that is a real potential for contamination because it's not regulated by the state or any other agency. I think the past 5 years, there's been a lot of confusion And so mining sites have gotten lumped in on that area.
You could
That's-
just try and wrap up your.
That's about
comments.
all I have, but thank you very much, and I'd be happy to answer any other questions at any time. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to address the board on this matter? David?
Much briefer than the prior speaker. Obviously, the community is concerned about the quality of maintaining the quality of our groundwater, our sole source aquifer. This is a highly technical matter of science and engineering. I appreciate that a lot of what this legislation will do may be duplicative of what the DEC requires of licensed operators, but I'm sure that the town can coordinate to avoid any unnecessary duplication. One thing that you certainly don't want to have to rely upon, as one of the speakers mentioned, was sending a FOIL request to the DEC. I tried that once. It's even harder than getting a FOIL response from the town board. It's nearly impossible. And then you have to go up to Stony Brook to look at the documents, and it takes forever. So if you can coordinate, if you can simplify the procedural burdens on your mine sites by coordinating with what monitoring is already occurring and to avoid duplication, of course, that's to be done. But so long as the town has a authority, and I don't know what the outcome will be of some pending legislation in the New York State Court of Appeals, but if you have the legal authority to request this data from the mining sites in town, I think that it's a good idea to do so. You've hired your own experts. They've gone through apparently 3 different iterations of this legislation. Hopefully this one is a keeper, and I hope that it'll be for the benefit of the town people, residents. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anyone else wish to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any callers on the line who would like to address this matter?
Just the caller 9396. I could try again. Caller 9396, you are unmuted. Are you there? Caller 9396, I can hear you. Can you hear us? All right, I muted caller 9396. No one else is on the phone lines.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, pass and carried. Carol, if you please read the 5th hearing notice.
Please take notice that pursuant to section 247 of the general municipal law of the state of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the town board of the town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing in the town hall meeting room on 59 Panago Road, East Hampton on November 17th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter as this matter may be heard concerning the following grant of a declaration of scenic and conservation covenants and restrictions to the town of East Hampton. The grantor, and this name throws me, the Arts Family LLC and Jed Weisberg, Scenic and Conservation with Covenants and Restrictions dated October 6th. The location is 335 Further Lane, East Hampton, Suffolk County Tax Map 300, 189, 4, 20.2, and the reviewing agency is the town board.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this matter? David?
Good morning again, David Buda from the Springs. I'd like to request that the emails that I provided to the town council members be included in the record for this proceeding. I provided to both Mr. Jolnicki and to all of you certain documents that go back to the mid-1980s. Minor subdivision of this was once owned by Paul Simon, this property. I'd also like to provide each of you with a copy of a map of the existing, the approved scenic easement. Thanks. Subject of this hearing as well. However, what this hearing seeks to do, based on a document I received this morning in response to my FOIL request submitted November 7th, is essentially you're being asked to modify and reduce what was originally a 100-foot scenic easement along Further Lane for the benefit of the current owners of this property due to some confusion or mistake on the part of either the town clerk's office back in the 1980s when the town board reviewed the scenic easements, because this property went through from Hampton to further lanes. So there are two scenic easements involved on both of those fronting roads. There also was a requirement for a common driveway, as is common in those days, was requirements imposed by the planning board. What Mr. Jolnicki has told me is that because there does not appear to be of record a specific filing of the scenic easements after they were reviewed and approved by the town board and directed to the town clerk to have them filed, since that may not be the case, apparently the property owner, who's been for a long period of time not in compliance with the scenic easement, has violated the scenic easement, has not obtained a current CFO, has many problems with his property. Essentially, you're being asked to punt and to allow them to modify and reduce the scenic easement that was required. I would ask, because there is ongoing research that needs to be done both into the legal issue as to the effect of certified surveys that were done for the benefit of these owners who would now be giving you a reduced modified easement. I've given you a copy of the actual updated minor subdivision map that was required by the planning board to specifically show the 100-foot scenic easement as a requirement for the issuance of building permits. Somehow in all of this, the town attorney at this point is unsure whether or not that original 100-foot scenic easement can be legally enforced. I would suggest that more research needs to be done in terms of the title history, the deed history, the filing, the title reports, because the same surveyor, George Walbridge and Company surveyors, that worked with the planning board in the mid-'80s to do this minor subdivision is the same surveyor that has surveyed the property continually to the present time, including a 2019 survey for the benefit of these people, showing the 100-foot easement. So before you give up too readily and too easily what the planning board required for the benefit of the neighborhood, I think that it would be appropriate to adjourn and continue this hearing at another date. That way there would be no requirement to renotice it. There's, as you know, the county offices, because of the ransomware attack on September the 8th, the public is now currently unable to obtain access to online records, which one could do to confirm whether or not there are any instruments of record that would support the notion that the original easements are enforceable as written, so that you don't have to modify them and reduce the easements. So I'm going to ask you again to adjourn and continue this hearing to another date to allow the completion of the process. Again, today, this morning, I received a copy of the proposed new easement. This is an extremely unusual situation. The town board is not a development agency. The reviewing agency for this easement, unlike any other easement I've ever seen you consider, is the town board itself. You are imposing a reduced development restriction for the benefit of certain owners of property. And it's contrary to what the planning board required. It's contrary to all the documentation of what should have been done. And if nothing else, and I'll say this again, when this board approves an easement of any kind, any type of property restriction, I must strongly suggest that you adopt a procedure where the original document be recorded through the auspices of the town attorney or the town clerk, utilizing the services perhaps of a title company to ensure that it's properly recorded. If I buy property, the last thing I'm going to do is allow the seller to record my deed. But that's what you have historically done. Sometimes dozens and dozens of easements go unrecorded. Sometimes they're found sitting in the clerk's files from the 70s and 80s and 90s. Sometimes they're lost in the attorney's office. Sometimes, most likely, they were returned to the attorney for the obligor, the grantor of the easement, and he just does nothing with it. So they should not be allowed to benefit from their own malfeasance or mistake in this case at least not very easily and readily. I'd ask you for additional time to complete the research necessary to find out why the town cannot simply enforce the easement that was well documented, that was required, should have been filed as a condition for obtaining building permits, and that the encroachments that are currently exist should be eliminated and not acceded to. Thank you.
Thank you, David. John, can you please address that?
Well, the board will recall, we actually spent a considerable amount of time and research on this issue. And we also consulted with one of our outside land use councils about the ability to impose the scenic easement that apparently at no point was ever placed in requirement for it in the chain of title. There could have been a declaration of covenants and restrictions that would have been filed with the subdivision that would have noted the requirement for the easement, but it wasn't done. So there was no record that we could find anywhere in the chain of title that required the easement, and that owner that developed the property sold it and transferred it, and these are subsequent owners. So that's how we ended up where we are. But that said, I certainly have no problem sharing the information I have with Mr. Buda. I'm happy to get up whatever information he has that he feels supports a different outcome. There's not an after hearing one for today, and actually we were waiting for one of the transfer docs has to be signed by the grantor anyway, and they're apparently out of the country, so we have to wait at least until the next meeting. If you want to keep it open till then, I'm fine with that, and I'm happy to share all the information I have with Mr. Buda on it, and hopefully if he has anything he can send me, I'm happy to look at it.
John, can you also address the recording of easement?
Yeah. The process that was used many years ago was to send we would typically group easements together, but they would group a group of these accepted easements together, send them to the county clerk for recording. And then the county clerk would at some point hopefully return recorded easements. But what often would happen is it would be, and I'm going to say, Carol, you might remember, I would say 6 months, 8 months, even longer sometimes. You get some of these easements back from the county clerk with little notes on it that they want this changed or they can't read that. And for whatever reason, they would be rejections for recording. So then, you take the easements, try to go back to the person who provided them, and they'll say, well, we don't own that property anymore. We sold it to somebody else. So now you can't get an easement from a person who doesn't own it anymore. Go to a new owner, and the new owners often were reluctant to participate. So it was harder to get recorded easements on record. The process was changed to say to an applicant, well, now it's your responsibility to record the easement, and you will not get a building permit or any permits from the town until such time as we have proof of recording back from the county. And in that way, they had the incentive to go and get it, bring it to the county. Sometimes they'd bring it personally and hand deliver it, get a receipt for the recording, bring it back to us and show us it was recorded. And that, frankly, has eliminated a lot of these unrecorded easements going forward. It just puts the onus on the applicant, and they make sure they get it done because they can't get the permits otherwise.
Okay. What was the time frame that policy changed?
Oh, God. I don't, Carol, do you remember? It's probably, 10, 15 years ago they changed it?
Has to be late 90s.
Late 90s, yeah.
Because this one is 86.
Yeah.
It's back to the 80s.
Yeah. Because we really, at that time, when it changed, the real estate market, well, like it is now, was quite active. And so you can have multiple owners after you send them in and they come back and they're not acceptable for recording. Now we have a problem because now we don't have an easement from the current owner. So we have to go to the new owner and try to explain it to them. And in a lot of cases, it was okay because there's documentation, it was clear and they were cooperative, but sometimes it wasn't. So that's reason, that is the reason it changed.
Yeah.
Thank you,
If
John.
I could just add one thing. You have 2 other hearings today concerning easements that have no controversy or any issues. And I note that the after hearing resolutions do recite that after your town board accepts the easement, you authorize and direct the supervisors to execute it, and the town clerk is directed to return it to the applicant for recording pursuant to the zoning board's resolution or planning board resolution. I don't think it's the best procedure. It may have been better than the prior procedure, but it's not the best procedure. An easement, even just a simple road widening easement, things need to be done. You probably should involve a title company as the person to record it. Why? If I own property and I grant an easement, if I don't get the consent of my mortgage lender, that easement is not going to be enforceable in case of a bankruptcy. You have to do things to ensure that the easement is properly recorded, timely recorded, and the cost of any of these easement recordings should be at the expense of the grantor, because they are getting development approvals, they're getting subdivisions, they're getting natural resources special permits, so they should certainly be the ones paying the freight. And you should use your agent to do the recording, someone who does it for a living, so it's done properly and timely. By the way, one of the things that you constantly often are asked to do is to approve road widening easements. And the typical form says you must show proof of this recording before you get a building permit. Well, I have news for you. For the last 2 times that you were accepted a road widening easement, the houses were already built. They were almost ready for C of Os. So it's not happening that these documents are being recorded, the condition that they be recorded and proof of the recording before issuance of building permits. It's not always happening.
Thank you, Dave. Matt, do we have any callers on the line?
Just that same caller. I can try again. Caller 9396. You are unmuted. Caller 9396.
Is there anyone else who wishes to address the board on this matter? There's been a request to hold the hearing record open for a week.
Is that enough time with the Thanksgiving holiday?
It's just to allow John to convey that information that David Boot is looking for, right?
There's no other callers on the line.
December 1st, that's our next board meeting. Would that be okay? Is there enough time?
So we have a motion
If I suggest 4 weeks would be more appropriate, or to the second meeting. There's just too many things going on. There still isn't access to the county records, and Mr. Delishi said things aren't even done. This isn't even ready to be accepted. So, and I would like to review the documents that he graciously offered to provide me so I can see what research has been done.
December 15th.
Yeah, that's fair.
Okay, so we'll leave the record open until December 15th for written comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Carol, if you'd read the 6th public hearing notice, please.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing, Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, November 17th at 11 a.m. or soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, concerning the following grant of scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is KEZ LLC. Scenic and Conservation easement dated October 25th. Location is 23 East Lake Drive in Montauk. It's 300-202-12. And the reviewing agency is the zoning board.
Thank you, Carol. Is there anyone here who wishes to address the board on this matter? Do we have any callers on the line that wish to address this matter, Matt?
There's no callers on the line anymore.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed, carried. Carol, if you read the last public hearing notice for today, please.
Please take notice that pursuant to Section 247 of the General Municipal Law of the State of New York and the provisions of the East Hampton Town Code, the Town Board of the Town of East Hampton will hold a public hearing, Town Hall Meeting Room, 159 Panago Road, East Hampton, on Thursday, November 17th at 11 a.m. or as soon thereafter, as this matter may be heard, concerning the following grant of scenic and conservation easement to the Town of East Hampton. The grantor is Pamela Drucker. It's a scenic and conservation easement dated October 11th at 836 Springs Fireplace Road in Springs, Suffolk County Tax Map 362-7-2.4, and the reviewing agency is the ZBA.
Thank you, Carol. Anyone wish to address the board on this matter? Matt, do we have any callers?
No callers on the line, Mr. Supervisor.
I'll entertain a motion to close.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried. That concludes public hearings. We do now have a public portion where any member of the public may address the board on any topic. Again, we ask that you please try to keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Good afternoon, Town Board. Jane Meering from Amagansett. I'll be brief today. The ink is not even dry yet on the wonderful headlines about the passage of Proposition 3 referendum. So I'm already here with an idea. And it's not really my idea. It actually came up last night at the planning board meeting, and it relates to 350 Pantago Road. That property was purchased a couple years ago, and there is a discussion about subdividing the property. But the session concluded where the planning board said publicly that they unanimously will be sending a letter to the board to recommend the town's acquisition of this property. This is almost 4 acres. Many of you are probably familiar with this property, that is zoned A residence and also has an affordable housing overlay on it already.
Just the old Stearns property.
This is the old Stearns property. And it was just an interesting session because the applicant's agent, the attorney, was very clear that his client, who's an investor, may or may not still have a partner on the deal, but not a real full developer, would be a willing seller. The attorney even said that there'd been already some conversations perhaps with Mr. Wilson. And so the planning board will be coming into you, I would imagine, with that memo, but I wanted to step up and, say and advocate for that because it would be greatly a shame to lose that property to a point where I'm doing the same exercise I did for Handy Lane, is counting up the excessive number of bedrooms and bathrooms and square footage that doesn't go to good use. So I would imagine this will be flagged to you separately, but I wanted to just endorse that and offer my support for that type of development and acquisition. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. David?
Hello again. I'm David Buda from the Springs. I'd like to again take this opportunity, as I had before, to encourage the board, the supervisor and the town council, I should say, to consider adopting procedures, at least with respect to public hearings. That would be a first place to start. That if there are relevant documents that would inform an interested member of the public about the topic of the public hearing, to make those available at least a week before the public hearing at or about the time that the legal notice, public notice, is published. It can be done by way of a link, either to your agenda page on the town clerk page, or it can be done on your town website in the fashion that you do it now for consistently. You've been doing it for almost 2 years for your town work session meetings, which has been, I think, appreciated by everyone involved. One should not have to foil to know what the operative documents are that are the subject of a public hearing. Now, CPF, which is one of the topics that I'm interested in, often, although not always, you enter into a conditional contract of sale, which you're allowed to do subject to the approval by the town board after a public hearing. Once that, if there is a conditional contract entered into, that document and the appraisal should be made available. And of course, the planning department's detailed evaluation memo, if there is one, unlike the situation for today's proposed transaction. If you go to my local school board, to the Spring School Board, and you look up an agenda, they go one step further, not just public hearings, because they don't have many public hearings at the meetings, if any. They will have links on their agenda to operative documents, whether they be warrants for payment of monies owed, claims, whether it be contracts that are being approved, whether it be a schedule of stipends that are being approved. Now that's, I'm sure, a tremendous burden. You have a very heavy docket of matters. Sometimes you have 50 resolutions to adopt, and I'm sure there's some document that supports each and every one of those. But before we get into supporting relevant documents, making those public, start with the public hearings. If there's a matter that the law requires you to have a public hearing, then by definition, it's a matter of public interest. And if there's a legal document that relates to or supports the proposed action that you're taking into consideration, make it available in advance. Every public hearing has a public notice requirement. Why? Because the public's supposed to be informed about it. Well, what's value is it to know something's happening if you then have to send out FOIL requests that are ignored for 2 weeks until the day of the hearing. Not the best way to run a government. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And I believe we have a caller on the line.
I'm
And there was
unmuting,
some problems connecting prior.
unmuting caller 9396. Caller 9396, you're on air.
We're still having problems.
Apparently.
Ann told me that the caller would be paying attention. Seems like there is connection issues on their end.
Yeah, I don't know what the issue is, Matt, but apparently they've been on hold, and I don't think they're hearing you or able to connect for some reason.
Caller,
Yes, hello.
hi, yes, we can, yes.
There we go.
There we go.
Great.
Okay, excellent. Been an effort. When I started this, I was going to start by saying good morning, but now I have to say good afternoon, town board. This is Frank Rena, and I'm a proud resident of our wonderful community. Local law to create Chapter 173, monitoring of groundwater impacts from composting,
Can I ask
mulch
Frank,
production, mining,
Frank, you mind if I-
mine land
Frank?
reclamation, will
Yeah,
offer
you
our
must-
town
record.
greater protection of our water resources, which includes groundwater and drinking water. By testing groundwater below these industries, science will become the foundation of decision-making. This legislation is not designed to be accusatory. Rather, it will ask questions and seek data in order to facilitate smarter and more appropriate decisions. It's a prudent approach to protecting our water resources because it uses science and removes any assumption of no harm being done. The beauty of this legislation is that nothing will change unless change is needed. This legislation offers our community a better opportunity to obtain a sustainable future by protecting our water resources from industries that have contaminated groundwater throughout Long Island. I implore these industries affected by Local Law 173 to embrace it. Don't litigate it, since this type of legislation is inevitable. Demonstrate that your organization is a good corporate citizen that wants to safeguard the community it services. These industries are historic and important in our community, established well before we understood the harm to groundwater they cause. I get that. It will serve you better to be on the right side now that we know otherwise. This legislation will better protect the public health of our residents, and I am grateful to the town supervisor, Peter Van Scoyac, Assistant Town Supervisor, Kathy Burke-Gonzalez, and the town board members, Sylvia Overby, David Lease, and Kate Rogers for this historic effort. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Are there any other callers on the line, Matt?
There's no other callers, Mr. Supervisor.
Okay, we'll conclude the public portion
Thank
then
you.
and move on.
Thank you.
And we'll move on now to resolutions. Kathy, you have resolutions to offer?
I do, starting with Resolution 2022-1354. It's approval of the warrant. Claims total $2,304,809.52. And the utility warrant totals $53,114.39.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
1355 is to approve a provisional appointment to assessment assistant for Timothy English. Timothy's salary will be $41,149.29 for a 35-hour work week effective November 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1356 is to approve appointment to full-time assistant cook to Human Services for Michael Oransky. Michael's starting salary will be $46,764.64 for a 40-hour work week, effective retroactive to November 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried.
2022-1357 is to amend Resolution 2020-844, attend food manager's course. That we did not qualify for a renewal class at a rate of $50 and instead had to pay the full class cost at $75. The financial impact is $300.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
We go off of Resolution 2022-1358. This is a notice of public hearing, amending Section 24058, Schedule 8, stop sign intersections in the East Hampton Town Code. These would be located at Central Ave, direction travels east and west, intersection of Surf.
Second.
1 second. Sorry, it says Surf Avenue, but it's in Surf Drive. I believe it's Surf Drive. So we can just amend that in the first section 1 to be Surf Drive. The public hearing will be held December 1st, 2022 at 2 p.m.
Second.
As amended.
Wait a second, let me get into this document. And drive and.
Drive is the correct one, but we have it presently, it's in the code as Avenue.
So it's in the code, is it? Sorry, John,
Right.
can you repeat that?
Yeah, it's in the code as Avenue, but it should be Surf Drive. So part of that is to just amend Surf Avenue to Surf Drive. So you changes correct.
So we're amending Surf Avenue to Surf Drive. Do we have a second as
And it
amended?
states that in the resolution itself.
Yes, it also
So I'm
mentions.
not going in here and changing the wording.
No, in the resolution, the first one should be to propose the stop sign. It's amended to read stop sign at Central Avenue, east-west at Surf Drive. So Avenue should be Drive there, yeah.
So we have a second as amended. All in favor?
That doesn't track.
Yeah, because at the bottom here.
Then it says is amended to read. It's already amending it in the resolution.
Okay, because it says Surf Drive.
It's listing Surf Drive because that's the way it is in the code, but it's amending it in the resolution. to
Okay.
Surf.
Right.
I mean,
To Surf.
Surf Ave to Surf
To
Drive.
Drive. right.
Okay, I got it.
So we don't need to have an amendment.
That's how I read it.
All in favor?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
You see,
Okay,
John?
look at the next page, right?
Yeah, go to the
Yeah.
next page.
Okay.
So that's with no amendment then.
Not required because it says
Right.
the third paragraph.
I got it
from the
now.
bottom.
Existing to amended, basically.
Just
You're right, Carol.
And let me,
Forget what I just.
So we'll have it
As is.
second as is.
So I just seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Pass and carried.
Okay.
Great.
1359. Appoint part-time recreational specialists in the recreational department, James Stewart and Ethan Mitchell, hourly rate of $20.50, effective December 1st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1360 is appoint part-time recreational aide, Julian Blandon, hourly rate of $15 per hour, paid bi-weekly, effective November 18th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass and carried.
Resolution 2022-1361 is appoint seasonal snow removal drivers and laborers in the highway department for year 2022 to 2023, effective December 1st, at hourly rate of $35 per hour. And list of individuals is below.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1362 is snow removal rates for the highway department for 2022, 2023. These will be effective from December 1st, 2022 through calendar year 2023. Automotive equipment operator, $35 per hour. Heavy equipment operator, $35, and labor, $35.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1363 is a budget modification for the field facility. We're bringing $660, I don't like saying that number, $666 from the budget line for maintenance and supplies to the same amount for equipment, repair, and maintenance.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Pass and carried.
1364 is a budget modification from Highway Department, bringing $3,000 from sideway improvements to $3,000 in tires.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That's carried.
1365 is a budget modification for buildings and grounds, bringing $2,500 from full-time salaries to the same amount for office expense.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
1366 is extend contract EH 21037. This is the annual sidewalk contract. This would be for Long Island Mason and Concrete Company, where we solicited bids in 2021. It's a renewable upon agreement of the parties for two additional one-year terms. And this is the effective period will be December 17th, 2022 through December 16th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. That's carried.
1367 is a proposal for the Gin Beach Comfort Station septic upgrade, where we had a response to RFP 2021-102 to provide engineering service. LK McLean has now provided a cost estimate for these services, for engineering services for this location, not to exceed $15,600 as the proposal from December 10th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
1368 is accepted bid for EH 22014. This is for the Westlake Comfort Station for a new foundation to Carter Mellons Incorporated. The cost is financial impact is $59,152. Sorry, I apologize. Let me just repeat that.
Yeah.
It's hereby accepted. The total cost is $72,000. The funding is taken from two budget lines. One for $59,152, and the other amount is for $12,848.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Resolution 2022-1369. This is the SEPTA donation for a memorial bench from a gift from Bill Noggle. Whereas Nancy Noggle Kelly was a lifelong advocate for land preservation and stewardship on the East End, as director of the Nature Conservancy and the Group for the South Fork, Nancy's professional life consisted of an unending pursuit of the preservation of the town's lands, air, and water, especially the habitat and waters of her beloved Acaponic Harbor. And whereas Bill Noggle would like to donate a memorial bench as a gift to the town of East Hampton in memory of his sister, Nancy Noggle Kelly, to be placed at the Nancy Kelly Preserve located at 880 and 888 Springs Fireplace Road on a path facing Acaponic Harbor.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Resolution 2022-1370 is a public hearing notice for McDonough grant of a scenic and conservation easement. The grantor is Patrick McDonough. It's a scenic and conservation easement at 150 Water Hole Road in Springs, and the reviewing agency is Zoning Board of Appeals. The public hearing will be Thursday, December the 1st at 2 p.m.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Resolution 2022-1371 is adopt the 2023 community development block grant budget. And we had a description of these from Tom Rule. The development grant budget is to be submitted to the Suffolk County for funding through the Consortium for Public Services. At Maureen's Haven would get $5,000 under Public Works. Whalebone Village would get $80,000 for ADA compliance for 4 apartments. And also the Housing Authority would get a generator for Avalon at $35,000 for a total of $120,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Resolution 2022-1372 is Greenway USA LLC for a change order at, this is the second change order for 54 Tough Oarsman Road. The second change order is in the amount of $1,996. This was a request from the fire marshal to install new gas lines that was not previously included in the bid specs. So with change order number 2, the total increase is from $173,280.08 to $175,276.08. And these are taken from community development funds line.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried.
Resolution 22-1373 is to extend contract EH 21-040 for printing of permits for the sanitation department and other forms to Montauk Printing. And these need to be in the accordance with the town's bid specs and the bid submission of the contractor for a period of 1 year to be effective from December the 3rd, 2022 through December 2nd, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Pass carried.
And I have 2022-1374. This is for a provisional appointment for an environmental analyst in the Natural Resources Department. This is where Suffolk County of Civil Service had an examination for the title of environmental analyst, and Anna Scorsese, is that even close? Meets the required qualifications for the position. So be it resolved that Anna Scorsese is appointed on a provisional basis to the full-time position of environmental analyst at an hourly rate of $29.07. That's $61,869.81 annually for a 40-hour work week. And this is effective November 28th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
22-1375 is a provisional appointment to office application specialist Natia Ashley. And this is where the Suffolk County Department of Civil Service gave an examination for this title. And Natia Ashley meets the required qualifications for the position. Be it resolved that Natia Ashley is hereby appointed on a provisional basis to the full-time position of Office Application Specialist in the Information Technology Department for $50,238.03 annually. And this is effective November 21st, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried.
And I have 2022-1376, and this is whereas pursuant to resolution 2019-380, the town board retained FMP Environmental to prepare a draft local law for monitoring of groundwater from mining and mine reclamation activities. And whereas they submitted a payment and the budgeted funds closed at the year end and the invoice was not processed, therefore resolved by resolution 2020-884 and 2020-900, the town board provided for a budget modification to fund for outside professional amount of $5,000 and authorized payment. Payment was not made on the invoice, and a duplicate invoice was submitted in 2022 for such services. Therefore, be it resolved that payment shall be made to FMP Environmental Group in the amount of $2,125.13 per invoice 17302.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. Resolution 2022-1377 is a provisional appointment to account clerk Bridget Canavan, and that is an hourly rate of $22.30, $46,393.36 annually, grade 19, starting step for a 40-hour week, and that's effective November 21st.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 1378 is to increase the cap for Picano and Scahill PC. New singular versus the planning board, St. Peter's Chapel 2022. And that would raise the cap by $5,000, constituting a total of $25,000. And also compensating Kelly Wright, Esquire, at a rate of $200 per hour.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1379 is to approve software subscription. Veripic, East Hampton Town Police Department. The department requires a secure digital evidence management program. And this would be a cloud-based software program at an annual cost of $7,056. Services will commence December 1st, 2022 through November 30th of 2023, I believe.
Yes, because
Yep,
So
can't go back in time.
if we can
Maybe.
Therefore, the proposal is accepted and it will be drawn from various budget lines. So I'll have a second.
Second
As
is amended to 2023, 11/30/2023.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1380 is budget modification for the fire marshal. That's moving $3,000 from training to $3,000 in uniforms.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1381 is a budget modification, another for the fire marshal. And this is moving $1,705 from travel, conferences, and dues to uniforms in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1382 is a budget modification for the town attorney's office, and that's moving $3,072 from conference and dues to online services in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1383 is a budget modification for ordinance enforcement. That's moving $10,000 from full-time salaries to $10,000 in fuel for motor vehicles.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's carried. 1384 is Detective McNamara reimbursement. And it's resolved that Detective McNamara be reimbursed in the amount not to exceed $120. And that's for VPN, virtual private network, in order to secure access to social media.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed. Carried. 1385 is to extend the contract EH 21-034 printing and miscellaneous forms, September 2021, Montauk Printing and Effects of Color. And that would be extended for a period from December 7th, 2022 through December 6th, 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1386 is to extend agreement RFP EH 2019-105. That's Airport and Aviation Engineering Consulting Services from Savick and Murray. And that would extend from December 13th, 2022 through December 12th of 2023.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. Resolution 1387 is to accept additional funds, and that's for the Wayne-Scott Commercial Center. Resolved that the, the town will be reflected in the budget by adding the amount of $10,000.
Proper budget.
I'm sorry.
It's not going into B8021, it's going into B80505452.
Do I have a second as amended?
Second is amended.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed carried.
Thank you, Carl.
1388 is to extend agreement RFP EH 2019-104 professional auditing and accounting services for the town of East Hampton, near Rocky Smith LLP. And that is resolved that the town, that they'll provide these services at Fort Gaspee 87. The fee must be increased to $105,000, not to exceed that. $105,000, modifying the 2020 agreement.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed carried. 1389 is auction surplus equipment. And that's resolved that the sale of surplus town of equipment may be offered for sale at the town by Absolute Auctions and Realty Incorporated at their website, arrauctions.com.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1390 is to increase the cap for Cooley LLP outside counsel, whereas the legal fees and expenses were authorized not to exceed $2,700,000. Whereas the town has determined increased cap as expenditures now needed for still pending litigation. Resolved that said legal fees shall be paid out of the airport fund, outside professional, in an amount not to exceed $3,150,000.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed carried. 1391 is to accept proposal of LKMA Professional Engineering Services, Boys and Girls Harbor Park. And that is for the construction of the pavilion and bathroom facilities.
Second.
Looking
That's
forward.
not to exceed $58,700. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1392 is to adopt 2023 budget, town budget.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. 1393 is to authorize license agreement with Sound Aircraft Services for hotel overflow. And hotel is the name of that area on the airport where parking of aircraft is. It's not a hotel as most people know it.
Second.
And that is an annual rate of $53,300. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. I believe there's some additional resolutions.
I have resolution 2022-1394. This is award RFP number EH 2022-105, license to utilize agricultural land in East Hampton to Cedar Lay Farm. The subject, it would be 5 years for $35,000
Second.
per year. That's correct.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried.
I have a resolution 2022-1395. It's the Pamela Drucker accept the grant of a scenic and conservation easement. It's for 836 Springs Fireplace Road. In Springs, Zoning Board of Appeals was the reviewing agency. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed and carried.
Resolution 2022-1396 is KEZ LLC, accept the grant of a scenic and conservation easement. This was for 23 East Lake Drive in Montauk, and the reviewing agency was Zoning Board of Appeals. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Passed and carried. Resolution 1397 is budget modification for the airport. Resolved town board directs budget officer to make the following budget modification to increase appropriated unreserved fund balance in the amount of $1 million. Increase outside professional in the same amount.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, passed and carried. We have one more. I don't have it with me.
I don't have one.
This is resolution ID 28571. This is to appoint part-time school crossing guard James McGuire. That would be at a rate of $20 per hour, retroactive to November 15th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passed and carried. Any other resolutions or matters bring before the board? I'll entertain a motion. I think we have
Motion.
exec session. tonight.
Motion to go into exec session for leases, personnel, and advice of counsel.
A second.
A second. That's advice of counsel. All right.
I have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passed carried. 1:15. We'll reconvene.
Sure.
Thank you very much, everyone.